Well, hey guys, welcome back to the Real Play Podcast. This is Sierra,
Hey guys, it's Ebony.
and today we have G. G is a matchmaker, and she is here to talk to us about matchmaking. Talk to two single women about matchmaking. So, G, thank you so much for coming on today.
Thank you both ladies for having me. I'm always open to talk about matchmaking, dating, romance, you know, uh, cuffing, COVID culture, anything.
I need to find about this cuffing COVID culture because I don't know anything about it because I'm not getting cuffed. But anyway, that's beside the point. Before we get into the real um, episode and start asking the questions and find out the information, we just wanted to give you a second to kind of let listeners know a little bit about you, introduce yourself, let them know your background and what got you into matchmaking.
um, Basically, I was actually single at the time. I just recently turned 50. Woo-hoo. So, really proud.
Black don't
50.
crack.
Black don't crack. Thank you for my mama and my daddy, both of them. But just saying, at the time when I decided to become a matchmaker, I was basically transferring skill sets from social services of helping at-risk youth and parents create plans to stabilize, their homes, environments, and just kind of looking at safety and risk factors. And at the time, being single, I actually decided to go back to school. I had some free time and started studying sociology. And my professor, HBCU, Bowie State, really great professor who was just like, maybe study being single, giving everybody different ideas. And I didn't know exactly like how to approach it. And so we kind of fleshed it out a little bit and decided at the time, because now I'm like 34-ish, probably going on 35. At the time, I was pretty leery of online platforms. I'm old enough to remember Dear Abby. You both probably don't know
No,
about.
I do remember that.
Okay, just say
I
that.
remember.
So, I was always been a fan of Dear Abby. I was the one who was lost in love and all the rom-coms of the 80s. So I'm a huge like Molly Ringwald fan. I can watch that on a snowy day. I can watch it 1,000 times. When Sex and the City came into play, I was watching all that. I love the voice of Carrie, Sarah Jessica Parker. And I was like, okay, maybe study myself being single. But again, never have considered non-traditional means of meeting men.
Right.
So doing this sociological project gave me opportunity to do something really different, which was going to an online platform. At the time, it was Black People Meet, which was still very new again for me. I had only even kind of ventured a little bit into Black Planet. I actually was never on MySpace. I wasn't that girl, and I'm still not. I don't really do a lot of social media. It's just not my thing. I like meeting people organically. I'm a very proud introvert, but I had my moments of being extroverted, particularly as a Generation X. We created hip hop. So, very proudly, I love my music. I love to dance, but I don't do a lot of engagement online. So I said, Black People Meet. I chose it. And the formula was to figure out how can I get these men to meet me in person. And so we decided to narrow it down and figure out like a timeline and like some benchmarks and what could I do. So it was like a test of 45 days. How many men can I meet in person, get them out the computer, meet me in person for a date, which I'll, kind of qualify later. And I ended up meeting 75 men in 45 days. And one of those men are actually now my husband.
Oh, nice.
I love it.
I figured in some instances it worked, so I was like, let's create a formula. Let me just kind of think more about this. And in doing so, through my studies, and then subsequently deciding to open up my own little small practice in the DC, Maryland, and Virginia area. I was actually working with men. I was doing date coaching for men, basically just overhauling their look. There's so many good men out here, so many good Black men. But unfortunately, I won't just say for Black women, I'll just say in general, if you don't have any like je ne sais quoi, if you don't have any swag,
Yes.
you're kind of dead at the door.
Right.
So I decided to work with men. Actually, I kind of missed one point. I'm a mother of one son. So I'm actually an avid lover of Black men. I had a great father, created a great man now because he's a man now. So I just always been fascinated with Black men. And so decided to focus on men, had quite a few male clients in the DMV area. and was, still fairly small, kind of, honing my craft, and decided to connect with a larger brand, someone who is some miles ahead of me. Connected with Paul Brunson and his wife, Jill. One of the greatest experiences of my life is connecting with them. They were still kind of doing their ground foundation, putting things together. And I collapsed my small firm under theirs. We decided to grow the firm pretty exponentially across the country of coaches, matchmakers, actually some contract clinicians, recruiters, and created a formula, a model that we call effective dating model that I still utilize today. So Paul and Jill are now considered to still be the founders of my company, which I call now the agency. And today I'm, 15 years in a happy relationship, almost 3.5 years married, and still working with clients, still supporting people towards becoming an effective dater, still loving what I do and staying behind the veil. Most matchmakers are not really known on the street. We can't do a lot of advertising. We can't get a lot of credit. A lot of people don't even want to acknowledge that we exist. And I'm good with that because I think there has to be a certain level of confidentiality to really support the elite clientele that I work with.
What's interesting is you talked about Paul, and I know him because not personally, but because I like books and he does a lot with books and productivity. Yes. But in that, I saw that he also does matchmaking. So it's funny that you brought him up. One thing I wanted to ask you, unrelated to that, is I was perusing your Instagram page and I noticed that you call yourself a romantic alchemist. What does that mean?
It's a little bit of magic, I think. I think what's funny is that my close friends, even my mother, calls me like, you're not as hot as I am. My mother considered herself a firecracker at 82. And she's like, you're not hot like me. Your husband has to beg for it and stuff like that. And I'm like, okay, so I'm not a hugger. Pre-COVID, people would know I like to keep my social distance. I don't like to be touched. Don't get in my face. I'm not a hugger. I actually have no idea what to do with adult criers, people who cry around me that are adults. I'm like, should I hug you, pick you up? I don't know what I should do with you. Like, maybe I should give you some privacy. So I probably wouldn't be considered the person that a lot of people think has a really big heart around romance and dating. But my husband knows it. My really, really close friends know I have a little, Sasha Fierce, I have a whole other alter ego. And then ultimately, I think there is a little bit of a magic that comes with romance. It's something that's not butterflies, because I don't subscribe to being a Cupid. I'm not a magician, but I actually feel that there's something very unique about romantic love that is one of the greatest loves that you could ever experience, but it's also one of the hardest loves to find and sustain. So I think there's a lot of magic and mystery that goes into it that kind of draws us all in.
Okay. I was just curious on that one.
So I want to go back to when you said you did this experiment and you wanted to see how many men you can get to meet in person. So I have learned, I'm not on the dating apps anymore, but when I was earlier last year, I had just got on them right when COVID started, right before COVID started. So I'm like, okay, let me try this. But I noticed they weren't trying to meet. They would maybe send 1 or 2 messages and that's pretty much it. And then it would kind of fizzle out. And I'm just like, okay, oh, well, unmatched, whatever. So what was the magic sauce to get 75 people to meet you in person?
75 dates. Now, qualifying the dates. I mean, I was meeting people at gas stations. Like, I roll up in my car, they roll up in their car. I say, hey, they say, hey. We say no. I say no. Get back in your car and go about your business. So most of them were like probably what would be considered now more meetups. Like, we meet quickly, kind of get an idea if we have any direct traction, and then we decide whether or not we want to continue an actual date. But the sauce that I found that I continue to tell any of my clients or anyone who just wants to listen to me, it's a numbers game. It's not really a deep secret. It's really like what I consider to be the upside down triangle. It's like you have to literally widen and then narrow. You have to almost kiss a whole lot of frogs. I think there's value in frogs as well, because there could be women frogs or men frogs, but ultimately you're not going to always be someone's cup of tea and you're not going to be theirs. So ultimately You just have to date more. And I think what's difficult, particularly for women, and the audience that I serve is Black women, we were not taught to date. Daters are whores. You juggling
Right.
more than one man. Hell, if you sleeping with more than one man, you are definitely a whore. So we weren't taught that way. So we were dating one man at a time, which actually dating has an air of, yeah, there's a little bit of juggling. The Steve Harvey concept is really not new, but I loved when he put out there about, to think like a man, act like a lady. Like, men date, women
Right.
should date. So ultimately, just because they don't turn out to be the one, who cares? Ultimately, the great thing is the experience. I learned that dating can be fun. I learned that I liked a whole lot of guys. I just couldn't be with them, or they couldn't be with me. But I met a lot of really great men of great value to my life. And ultimately, the secret sauce is just widening that net. Somebody piques your interest, go out with them. Someone doesn't pique your interest, still go out with them. Go out with everyone.
Okay.
Just keep going out.
What'd you say,
See,
Ebony?
I said that was one of my questions because I found myself, I'm not on any dating apps anymore like Sierra. One, because I felt like there was not a lot of quality guys on these apps.
Right.
Second thing is a little opposite of Sierra. They almost want to meet up too quickly. Like, hey, how you doing? Let's meet up. I mean, you ain't even, can you get my name? Can I get some information about you? It was a little scary for me. And then also I felt like there was just no interest there, not enough information for me to be interested. And so I'm like, do I really want to go out? If it got to the point where we maybe chatted a little bit, I still wasn't that interested, I would possibly still go out on the date. But I'm trying to find a balance where I actually like a guy and I go on a date.
Well, the first thing I would say though, then Ebony and Osier, is that what's your goal? A lot of people just assume that everyone has the same goal. So if your goal is not to necessarily just find one person, so be it. Um, Date multiple people, have different interactions, have some fun. You don't necessarily obviously have to have sex with every one of them. That's kind of like the thing that kind of plagues a lot of women, is that if you're dating multiple men, that the presumption is that you're going to sleep with all of them, and that's just not true. But everyone has different dating goals, and there are quite a few men, as you said, Ebony, that they will come out and they'll meet you, and maybe sometimes it feels too fast, but you can really control the pace. It is really truly a dating world for women. It's a woman's dating world, contrary to what people think. The women are really leading dating today. And on the apps or sites, to your point about the quality of men, I just always tell people, just like myself, I have a sample of what exists. Because there's plenty of good men, plenty of good Black men. They're out there. They're on the sites, the apps, they're on the street, they're in the grocery store, but they're a sample of what exists.
Wow.
So,
That's
being that it's COVID, so me and Sierra aren't on any dating apps. Most of the time we spend at home. Uh, as far as some recommendations for women who are just in the same space, do you say go back, give dating apps a try, try to get out your house a little bit more? I know there's like Instacart and restaurants are closing early,
Yeah.
but still try to go out a little bit to meet. Is there like a recommendation on that part, or you're just like do it all?
Well, it kind of goes back to, just really quickly, I guess, Ebony, because you're speaking to Sierra, the same. I mean,
Mhm.
what is your dating goal now? Like, and then I can kind of refine to say, like, in COVID, COVID cuffing culture, it is a little tricky, but what is your dating goal? What is your purpose for dating?
So, my dating goal is eventually I want to be married. I'm 33 years old, and I feel like I've grown a lot, I've learned a lot, and that would be my end goal in dating. I wouldn't want to just date just to date.
Okay. Sierra?
And then for me, I was a little torn. I do want to date with the intentions of being married, but at the same time, I felt like I've been in relationships that lasted a long time. My last one ended in 2018, and I think I know what I want, but at the same time, I didn't have a lot of dating experiences. One guy I dated my whole entire time in college at Fayetteville State,
Okay.
and then afterwards we were still talking for a couple of years, and then I met my then fiance and then now I'm single. So it's like I didn't have a lot of dating, but I don't want to just date. I want to get married, but I don't know which one to go with.
Okay. In COVID cuffing culture, according to what your goal is, a lot of people would probably think like I'm a traditionalist, like I'm a traditional matchmaker. I actually still introduce a man, and I do, opposite sex, heterosexual, because there's matchmakers that for same sex, is matchmakers for the Jewish culture, matchmakers for different ethnicities. So just saying I am a heterosexual, predominantly, I would say mid to late 30s, mid 40s matchmaker. Mostly women are my clients, but I do serve men as well. But what I would say is that as a traditionalist, I still encourage people to date online, because it's
Oh,
dating effectively means to date comprehensively. It's one aspect of dating effectively. So it's kind of like, turning over every rock of sorts, like leaving no rock unturned. So in today's culture, particularly with COVID, it is actually also about safety, like
right.
meeting people in person. If you're one of those people who, there's lots of people who like are doing nothing. Like you said, they're Instacart, they're getting everything delivered. They ain't left their house. They're not leaving their block. I totally get it. As someone who really consider myself generally healthy, but I have health conditions that would say like, no, I'm not going out I don't do any indoor eating, but I do go out. I go to the grocery store. I still go out to like Target. I've had some like, wine moments with some of my girlfriends outside. I am a person who don't choose to go inside, but I've heard people eating inside. I've heard people having gatherings at their home. So because dating has an air of newness, the safest thing you could do is meet someone online and really
Yes.
create an environment that is just like this to get a sense of who someone is. But we also encourage people, pre-COVID or not, but in COVID, you have a great opportunity to really ask questions that are probably typically not that comfortable. But nowadays, people are asking about health. People are asking about your routine. People are asking about friends and associates and, your life, things that you wouldn't have asked maybe till later on, or you might have found out through experience. So I actually encourage people that even my current matchmaking clients now, almost all of them are on either a dating site or a dating app.
Okay, that's interesting.
Interesting. Yeah, it really is. I didn't think you were going to say that.
Yeah, I mean, we actually respect our techie giants. Most of my matchmaking friends, because it's like a little cohort of Black love matchmakers, dating coach, relationship experts that we kind of hang out of sorts. So in the Black love profession, and a lot of us, have different kind of expertise. So it's kind of like we learn from each other. And then so we have some of our techie giants that are behind the scenes managing those algorithms, giving a lot of good data and analysis to some dating trends and things. So we respect them as well. So we encourage, again, as a direct service practitioner in Black love, I still encourage my clients and anyone that I talk to, personal friends, you should be online, in COVID or not.
Okay.
So
So
you
go ahead. Sorry.
so you said trends, and I know I kind of texted you about that earlier yesterday. I was just wondering, because we are in COVID, how has the trends of dating for you in your practice changed um, in the last year? And then what was it like before COVID?
Before COVID, I would say one, first meetups were in person. If we were curating a date between two people, we were telling two people to meet in person first. Now it's kind of like really shifted that even if you're local, because we're a national agency, so I have clients who are cross country. So
Mm,
obviously, if you're long distance, you would have to do maybe a virtual meetup. But if you're local, we would definitely encourage people to meet in person. Now that's kind of wiped out. We're
mhm.
telling even local people to do some level of a Zoom, WebEx, Google Duo, something that's comfortable for them, to have some sense of comfort around the person's personality, a little bit more live, even though it's not in person, it is
Right.
giving you something. So that's one of the obviously drastic things, is the way that COVID has really kind of illuminated like the idea of like this whole interaction through virtual, where a lot of people are like, I'm so sick of virtual. I don't like dating apps. I don't like dating sites. I want to meet in person. Now everyone is on a dating app and dating site. But
Hmm.
also, I really would say that during this COVID cuffing culture, because people tend to date anyway in the warm months, they date more seriously during the colder months. because that's where the whole cuffing comes in. Like you want
Right.
to be home, you don't want to be outside. Where I'm at right now, it's snowing. So you want to cozy up with someone. So what this has done though is kind of taught people to say, I really value this colder season, this time where romance is often a priority, just like going into New Year's. But also, yeah, I am asking a lot of questions. I have more clients now who come to me, or potential clients, not everyone becomes a client,
Mm-hmm.
who really want to understand people's health status. They
Mm-hmm.
really are asking more questions about like their lifestyle, and it's not a cliche. It's like serious. I want to know like what you eat. I want to know when last time you had a physical. I want to know like, what's your blood pressure? I want to know like, not just the typical, like, are you healthy? Do you eat clean? Do you go out? Do you jog? Do you go to a gym? No, I really want to know like, did your mom have cancer? Did your dad? Like, what are some ailments in your family lineage? Like, like, any potential diseases, things like that, emotional wellness. People are just more, I think, upfront to say, hey, this has been a hard ass year. I don't
Mm-hmm.
have time for no nonsense. How are you living your life?
Right.
What is your faith? Like, again, I'm not asking the cliche, what's your religion? Like, what do you believe in? Are you surviving? Have you spent all your money? Did you lose your job? Like, these are no longer like general questions. People are like, I am serious. Like,
Straight out the
I am
gate.
blessed.
Mm.
I am surviving, but I can't have anyone who has unfortunately plummeted. I can't be connected to someone who done lost their job, who has lost their mind, lost their sense of purpose. I can't. So people are really, I think, more open and transparent. And I believe that's across the board, men and women.
So I have a couple of things. I was on in a clubhouse room
Mm-hmm.
last night, and this guy had said when he goes out on a date, he has like 3 questions that he kind of incorporates into the conversation. He doesn't ask the questions right out
Mm-hmm.
because a lot of times people aren't so forthcoming. He just kind of slots it in the conversation and then see how the person reacts.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I've been on a date where a person just was rapid fire and questions, and I was like,
Yeah.
okay, hold on now. And that didn't work out, of course. But do you recommend going in with at least 3 questions on a date? All right, and I think he said that those questions were like deal breakers. So one of them would be, um, you ask some type of question about faith, so you know where
Mm-hmm.
they stand with faith. Maybe you ask a question about I'm trying to think what else he said. But whatever your deal
Mm-hmm.
breakers are, you
Yeah.
kind of incorporate them. So that's one of my questions. Should we like have like 3 to 5 deal breakers that we bring on a date and kind of like incorporate those? And how many deal breakers are too many? You're like, girl, that's too much.
One, and some people feel like, oh, it's just semantics. So not being an ass. People who are just meeting,
Mm-hmm.
it's almost like it can't really be a deal breaker. We're not in a relationship. Like a
Mm.
deal breaker would be for me, like me and my husband. Like my husband right now knows that, and I'll just say like a random baby is a deal breaker. I probably would not necessarily leave him for cheating. It would be according to, because I believe in equilibrium. So if you take one, you're gonna have to take one from me too. So I believe in equilibrium. So I probably wouldn't leave him for cheating because again, I think I could balance that. But I can't do random babies. I'm 50 years old and I'm not fond of small children. So I have a child, but I'm not fond of small children. Actually, I'm a grandmother and I'm so glad my 8 and 11, I couldn't wait because I'm not fond of small children. So I couldn't have a random baby in my life. That's
Mm-hmm.
the deal breaker. That would cause us to have to cancel. I'm
Right.
probably going to be out or you would need to leave me because the random baby couldn't come over for Christmas. I don't want nothing to do with them. I'm not going to help them with school and I'm not going to help you. That's a deal breaker. But a non-starter is what people should be thinking about for dating. What's the
Mm.
line that can't be crossed? Like, so going back to, I was a single mother. When my son was very young and I was dating, it is a non-starter if you're not an appropriate man that can enter my son's life because we're a package. So if you're a heavy drinker, a drug addict, if you are, I remember one guy I dated, he was a murderous smoker. But he really actually said it was self-defense and he actually was living a pretty good life, and I was very still like, okay, I'm gonna date a murderer, but okay, he seems to be doing well. but he was a heavy smoker. I'm asthmatic, and so is my son. And he absolutely refused to stop smoking. He was just like, anybody, just like how you said you got your son, hey, you got to accept me and my smoking. I can't accept it. That is a conflict in our health. It is a conflict in my values around my life. So we can't go any further. The idea is to have an understanding of what is your absolutes. What is something that you could never consider
I got a list.
coming into your world? That's a non-starter. And really, that list shouldn't be long.
Right. It
And
shouldn't.
so then you go from there to strong preferences, and then ultimately things that are kind of like, okay, a gray area. So it's non-starters. Strong preferences would be things like most men like a woman who has an appropriate waist to hip ratio. It's that little curve that people tend to think it's not about just having the smallest body, because you can have that from like a stripper pole body. You can have it in a plus size body. The idea is to be able to cinch that waist. That's why it's so important to just cinch that waist and pop that hip. With a slimmer, a skimmer, whatever, if it's natural, as long as men see it, they tend to be drawn to it. It's just seeing that waist cinched. But that's a strong preference. You know, that's not a non-starter. People tend to confuse and say like, oh, I'm not gonna date a woman who has a big fat stomach. That's a strong preference, one that I wouldn't ignore as a matchmaker. Women who say I only want to date men that's, 5'10" and above. That's a strong preference. I totally get it. You know, if you have to be 5'10" and above, but that's not a non-starter. It's not a conflict that a man is short. It's just something that you highly prefer. So usually I tell people, once you really look at it from a non-starters, absolutes, I cannot date this person because they're a drug addict or they're an atheist. And I am, very devoted to my belief, in Christ. Um, you know, it might be a little bit of a blurred line, but people who have no connection, like with their parents. Some people say like, I have a strong value of family. Someone who has no connection with their mother or their father, for me, that's like a non-starter, because I really desire to have someone who has a great foundation. So that can be a little blurred, but it's non-starters, absolutes, and then strong preferences are something that should definitely be considered, but not be confused as a non-starter. And really that list, going back to your original point of how many, there really isn't probably going to be a whole lot once you look at it from that angle.
That's interesting because my therapist, one, she told me to look for like green lights instead of red lights. But she also brought up preferences too, because I'm like, oh, I would like a tall guy. And she's like, okay, that's a preference. I would like a guy with no kids. She was like, that's a preference. It's not.
It's a little bit of a blur only because it does impact the quality of your life. As a single mother, I'm not one of those people out here running out saying it's been a great experience. It was a great for me because my son happened to be amazing, but my son deserved that me and his father made more effort to raise him together, and we didn't. So that's on us. That's not on him. But the idea that someone who's a single parent and you're not a parent, I do, again, a therapist is different from my role. From my perspective, I would tell someone it could be a non-starter based on the fact that it is going to impact the quality of your life, good or bad.
That's good, because now that tells me like when I'm trying to put my preferences in the role versus my non-starters. Okay.
I like that term though, non-starters. I've never heard of it. It's always like deal breakers. That's the word everyone would say. And so to look at it as a non-starter, because you really aren't in a relationship, you're just getting to know them. So
yeah, you're not even going to start the relationship. But I tell my clients, like, hold yourself accountable. I'm going to hold you accountable. You say you don't want to date an atheist, atheists are gone. They're off your field. As soon as they say they're atheists, it's no devaluing. It just means my client can consider it, and there's no conversation. They're atheists. They're a proud atheist. You're a proud Christian. That's it. Move on.
That's good, because I think sometimes we as women are like, but they're a really good person. They have they're tall, they have money. They want to get married. I'm just making up all kind of stuff, but they take those things instead of saying, okay, well, that one thing, and then that one thing grows and becomes something later.
That's what we encourage people to understand. If it isn't a non-starter, then that's okay. Put it in your strong preferences, but be very clear that a non-starter is a non-starter. It can't be negotiated. And so that ultimately we all have non-starters that change, you know. Your non-starters are not going to always be written in stone, you know, just like your strong preferences, but just be very clear that when you're dating, have some understanding before you go out. To your point about the person who was talking in Clubhouse about the list. I encourage people to have some understanding of, again, who you are before you meet someone else. If you're unclear about your non-starters and strong preferences, then ultimately you're negotiating from chemistry. And chemistry can lead you down a very dark rabbit hole.
Man, I was going to ask about chemistry.
Chemistry is important, but it can lead you down a dark rabbit hole to make some really poor decisions that conflict with your non-starters.
So,
it is, again, it's very, but it is very important.
okay. Do you think dating someone without chemistry is possible?
We did an experiment that this is when Paul and his wife Jill and like 5 other of our team members decided to, because we consider ourselves boutique. So in boutique services, just like a, you know, like clothing, that means they're kind of tailoring it to a certain type of clientele versus just kind of opening the door, you know, like a general store. So we decided, like, we want to impact more people. Let's open our door and not be boutique for a second. Let's do general store. And we opened the door to do this experiment of kind of assessing, can you grow your chemistry? You see the shows, the Married at First Sights, the Ready to Love. I'm a fan of most. Like, I don't watch The Bachelor, so I have my preferences, but I'm a huge fan of Married at First Sight. I'm a huge fan of Ready to Love. Like, I absolutely love Nephew Tommy. I love him as a host. But the reality of it is that oftentimes it's a little bit of it's schmoozed up because it's entertainment. We don't want to watch something boring. But behind the scenes, it's just like a regular old matchmaker, traditional, like, I don't have no TV. This is not a reality show. The reality of it is that we wanted to see if we could help people to grow their chemistry. So as opposed to like going through full matchmaking, we said, we're going to match you with someone that you don't select. We're selecting them, and you must interact with them 2 times in person at least, and like 1 conversational video. But you must see each other 2 times, but it must be 3 interactions before you make your decision of you want to stay connected or you're going to be done. And you have to give feedback as to why. And as opposed to our price points that can range from anywhere from $500 to $5,000, we decided to do a blanket thing. It was like, I think 175, something like that.
Wow.
And we had like 400 people sign up. It was literally a hot mess because we couldn't manage the volume. And then we had to like curate all the 3 dates from all the people. But even though like business wise, it was a mess, we learned a lot to say that people are not really as comfortable to grow in chemistry. We believe it can happen, but there was so much angst about when they first met and then they didn't feel it. Like, we had some people who met and was like, oh yeah, I can't wait for my next 2 dates. But there were some people who was like, I ain't doing the other 2. And we were like, you have to, you agreed to this is the process, blah, 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 blah. There's just so much, I think, that's taught to women and men that if you don't feel those butterflies initially, it can't grow. I just happen to believe that it does matter how much time you spend with someone. It does matter how intimate you are with someone, because being in someone's presence versus kissing someone is different. So I do believe that chemistry can grow, but obviously organically, when it happens at the onset, that's the best.
Really interesting to me.
And so I have a question about, so say I want to come to you.
Okay.
And we've already talked about our non-starters, and I already know what my preferences are. And I call you up, or I call your company up. What should I expect if I were to reach out to a matchmaker to be a client? Like, how does that whole process work?
And apologies, just real quick, I'm not sure. Can you hear my husband in the background?
I can't.
Okay, just making sure, because he can be loud. And again, this work from home life is really interesting. 5 offices and 1 house. But basically, I would say myself, and again, a lot of my cohorts in the Black love space, we have a lot of similarities. So most of us kind of take people from just initial kind of interest, either by phone call or by email exchange. Most of us do require like you providing us a certain level of information about yourself. On my end, I actually prefer to speak to people first, and I tell more about myself first and my company before I learn anything about the person, only because I feel like I need to earn your trust. So I want to keep a certain level of confidentiality to let you know you don't have to share anything about yourself. Like, you can ask me anything and I won't ask you anything. And so most of us are gathering information at the initial stage. For us, again, sharing more about me. If someone is open to then share about themselves, I do ask them to fill out what's called like a mini assessment. It's not like a full assessment. Again, I'm not a clinician. I am a coach and very proud to stay in that lane. Clinicians have completely different roles. So ultimately, I'm gathering some very basic information, taking that information, and then I'm providing a recommendation. In that recommendation, I try to be very honest. There's quite a few people who don't even need matchmaking that I'm like, why are you here? Like, go pick up Paul's book, or go pick up my book, or go pick up another one of my colleagues' books, like, or go read this article in a magazine. Like, you don't, or just go to this bar, or take your bun down, let your hair down. Like, I think you'd be cuter with your bun. Like, you don't need to be here. Or I've had people who I'm a little concerned maybe about their emotional well-being. And again, staying very clear that I'm a coach, focusing on behaviors that I believe people can change because they have control over, versus something that could be more deep-rooted, some other trauma that's beyond dating trauma, because that's a whole thing that I can address. But if you have trauma that's something else, then I'm saying go, maybe go to a clinician, do some work before coming here. And then lastly, based on the call and the information provided, we get recommendations that could include traditional matchmaking, online coaching, or it could be a style session. There's a lot of people who might feel a little funny about that. But I try to be honest and say, like, your pictures are not appealing. Your romantic brand is not going to garner you the lead you want. It's a pragmatic process. So it's kind of like, if you're not open to go to the style session, if you're not open to do that, then I can't work with you. And again, that could be for men or for women. And so ultimately, we give all the information up front, also whether or not we have anyone currently in our database that we feel like we could connect you with, or if we have to hire a recruiter. So we tell people up front and we give them their price points and we kind of let it be.
You said relationship brand.
Yeah.
Or not
A romantic brand.
Romantic brand. That is interesting. So we all have our own brand that we exude to people.
Oh yeah. If you troll back through some of your pictures, like, our whole lives are now in a digital footprint. Like, I just look back from last year to this year, looking at my phone, and was like, this time last year, I was having a party because I had like a little love party at my house. Like, again, I like direct interaction. So I'll invite some single men, invite some single women, just see what happens, no fees, no matchmaking, just, brown sugar moments, and actually that's something that my founders, Paul and Jill, started off with. They were just doing brown sugar moments, inviting some of their alum men and some of the women they met in the community. So this is what this time last year was like. And then you watch the trajectory of my pictures, everybody's wearing masks, everything kind of seemed dismal. So if you look at your own footprint, digital footprint on your Facebook, IG, Snapchat, whatever you have that is like saved, you'll see like pictures that you put that we actually encourage a lot of our clients. You need to get rid of a lot of those because people troll you. So how you present yourself on your profile, and you're like this and like this and you're like this, then they troll down and they see you like this and they see you like this and they see your different hair or they see your different makeup. You want to give a very clean, clear, romantic brand. If you're dating effectively, you want people to see you at your best at all times. And although you want to be action orientated and you want to show that I'm fit, no one needs to see you sweating. No one needs to see you with the ugly sweatband on the bike. And you shouldn't take too many pictures with your cuter friends. You should make sure you have more pictures by yourself, because while they're supposedly looking at you, they're like,
who that?
look at Sierra. But what about Oh, let me see where she's at. Then they trolling on Ebony's page. They done left Sierra. So we tell people all these group photos where your friends tagged you, where they look cute and you look a mess.
Right.
Get rid of
Untag.
Get untag. Get rid of them, and keep in mind that we can't control people's trolling. We're all guilty of it.
Right.
So even on your online profile is one thing, but be mindful of your business brands because it's still your romantic brand.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I think I'm good on my profile. I clean mine up. So nothing that. And it's open too.
Yeah, when it's open, that's even more so why you should keep it clean and just be mindful of what are the images you're displaying, what are the messages that you're displaying, because people will troll you. We tell our clients all the time, please don't do that. We even change, like for instance, like Sierra's name, I probably would change the spelling of her name. If she was my client, I wouldn't spell her, we only use first names. I wouldn't spell her name the same way because I would try my best to make it more difficult. Like we don't even share pictures that people can basically, like, you can look people up by their pictures.
Right.
So we try to keep some level of privacy, but we're all guilty of trolling.
Wow, you said a lot in that. I had another question I was going to go with that, but
they're a romantic brand.
Yes,
but again, and I use a lot of my colleagues who are like gurus, Francesca Hoagie, Erica Etienne. Those are like Kevin Carr. Those are my go-tos for all things online. So definitely I encourage your audience, Francesca Hoagie, Erica Etienne, and Kevin Carr. Anything for those dating apps and stuff, pictures, they are my go-tos. I send my clients to them because I believe in outsourcing.
Google those names, listeners. Okay. Get some help on your social media.
Yeah.
But yes, this is such an interesting conversation because especially us being two single women, we've had a lot of talks on relationships, and we talk about on the actual podcast, and we talk with each other or our friends on what we're looking for. And before you got on, we talked about a guy who, I believe he has a podcast. I'm not really sure, but his video is right now viral where a young lady was, and you may have seen it, but she was talking to him about how she wanted a certain type of man.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, she wanted someone who made six figures because she made a lot of money. So I believe she made six figures as well. She lived in North Carolina, if I'm not mistaken.
Mm-hmm.
She has one son.
Okay.
He asked her to rate herself, and she said she was a 5 in the morning when she first wakes up, and she's a 6 when she puts herself together.
Okay.
But then he continued to be very rude. He told her, he said, "You're average at best."
Well, that's a 5'6" though. That's average.
And then he said she can't expect to. It was actually really the way he said it, because he wasn't nice with any of it. He said you couldn't expect to find somebody because she's average. She can't expect to find this tall man that makes all this money. She needs to lower her standards. And I'm gonna send you the video because everyone is talking about it. He was very mean about it, and they said that he pretty much hates women. He doesn't come out and say it, but you can tell the way that he's talked to other people as well. He's got a very negative way of speaking to women. But then that kind of goes back to Ebony and I saying earlier, like, we kind of looking for a certain thing. She says she wants a tall guy. I may want a tall guy.
Mm-hmm.
There's the 666 rule that I recently heard about, which is the man is 6 feet tall, makes six figures, has a six pack.
Yeah.
Is that like really bad to want that though?
No, I mean, what's funny is that definitely send me the video. I'm not on social media often, and I pick up on stuff and I miss stuff. But one, I would always say, is the gentleman's role? Is he a coach, a matchmaker, or is he basically a romantic provocateur? We have people who are, again, like, it's entertainment, just like on TV shows. Nobody wants to watch something boring.
Right.
So it's almost like, you gotta spice it up a little bit. You have to have people at odds. Nobody wants to hear Sierra and Ebony always get along. At some point, want to see some opposing views. So I'm not really, when I hear a man or a woman, because I hear just as many women say, like, if he ain't got six figures, I ain't, because it might be a very beautiful, aquiline woman with a bomb body or what have you. He ain't doing this. And it's like, okay, well, what's her purpose for doing that on social media? So what is his purpose? If it's to gain following and to go viral, I'm not mad at him that he reached his goal. But the reality of it is that some of the stuff he says, I have that conversation. I mean, I've argued with clients about cutting your weave. I'm like, it's not your hair. It's too long. It doesn't look real. And
Mm.
so, and you arguing with me, and I'm like, well, then take your money back. I've had men tell me, like, most of my clients, actually, I'm in awe of. I'm talking about from Oprah Winfrey team to MTV execs to JP Morgan execs to uh, clear influencers as well as celebrities. Most of my cohorts have touched someone at this global level, but we're
Mm-hmm.
helping them behind the scenes with their romantic life because everyone has something you struggle with.
Right.
Everyone has something. There's a whole pie of life. Everyone has different slices. Most people slices 1 to 10, they're tens. There's a certain slice that's not. So when the man said to the woman, at best you're 5 or 6. Another one of my go-tos is Stacey J. Johnson, who I absolutely love as well. She's based out of Atlanta, and I just did a thing with her because she wanted me to talk about my dating marketability. And it's a scale that we use. So when he said, she's a 5 and she said she wanted this, what I do for my clients is say from 1 to 10, you need to rate yourself from your facial features to your body, and then we get into other categories. So using myself, I'm considered cute average, almost to like what you said. The young lady said, I don't wake up like this. I'm not repulsing my husband when we wake up,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't wake up with halos over my head and my skin glistening and my, everything shining in my hair. Like, no, I have to make effort. So I'm cute. I'm not going to be repulsed. I don't have any disfigurements in my face. I'm cute, but I'm
Mm-hmm.
not considered pretty or beautiful. And so you have to understand what cute means.
Yes. What does it mean?
Oh, there's
Because I think
definition.
that you're beautiful, so I don't.
Oh no, I don't qualify by definition. I encourage you to look up the word beautiful or pretty. There's actual facial features. There's
Oh,
spaces of eye to nose. It's where your mouth is positioned. It's your cheekbones. All these
wow.
things actually add up to like why sometimes you look at a model and be like, they are not pretty. Yes, they are. By definition, they
Mm.
fit a certain thing that when they take pictures, that again, that whole eye spacing, all these things, there's qualification for pretty or handsome. And so I'm cute. So I'm cute. But then people will say, like, well, then what's after cute? After cute, there's a range that would just be considered below average. That means you need more work than cute. And you're definitely farther away from pretty or beautiful. And so ultimately, it's understanding what category, but not feeling like any less than. And
Mm-hmm.
then my body is average because I'm shaped like a small Wendy Williams. I have big breasts. I have, my waist is not as small as hers, but then I don't have any hips. I don't have this. So
Mm.
since I don't have this, I have to achieve it by doing things like a body slimmer or wearing clothes that can balance me out. Since I'm shaped more like this, the
Got it.
reality of it is that's not the most desired body type. So when the gentleman told the woman she was 5 or 6 and she still wanted a 6-figure guy, from his perspective and for his purpose, he might be true. But
Mm-hmm.
what men and women need to understand is that I can up my game. Just like the man who was short. I mean, I had a potential client that had alligator arms. I mean, his arms are like this. He was deformed. He had
Oh.
very short
Oh,
arms. And then he was like round in the face and his body was round.
Mm.
So I was like, he was like, can I? Yeah, I was like, of course I can serve you. Why? Because you are a 6-figure and women look at
yeah.
things different. And so I can put you in the right clothes, give you some great talking points. We can like do some behavior modification. But as long as you're making that money, you can get yourself a bomb wife because we look at things different. So the woman with the bomb body, hmm, she don't have any education. She's uncouth. She's basically ghetto,
And she get him.
but she can bounce that ass. She can get her a nice businessman. And so
Mm.
all the rest of us that are in the middle, the 5, 6 woman, she can get herself a 6-figure guy. Why? Because there's other attributes to your marketability. I ended up realizing mine was being clever. I had more men who probably wanted to sleep with me, less because of my breasts, less because of my face, but more so because I was clever and they liked talking to me. When you find what is your thing, whether it's a sexual thing, personality thing, visual thing, even a financial thing, it's how you choose to market it. But you just have to be very cautious, because if you know people are more interested in that thing than
Mm-hmm.
you, only you can balance what you're open to. But a 5'6" woman can get her a six-figure man. She can. And a 5'6" man, average, can get him an 8, 9, 10 woman. It's how you
Okay,
play your
well,
market.
who can't get a six figure
Who can?
or woman?
Oh, because I've had some beautiful, like I said, definition, beautiful women. Man, but you're so ugly inside. And
Right.
you're
Mm,
asking me crazy
yeah.
questions, and you're snarling at me in the video, and I'm your matchmaker. You are being a total bitch to me, and I'm your matchmaker. I'm not even trying to date you. You have all the assets aesthetically, but you are so ugly inside. And so a lot of people don't even think,
Mm.
man or woman, that if I got all this six packs, six figures, I don't need to even work on my personality. You do,
Yeah.
because you can get them, but you are not going to be able to keep them, because the same people that you treat poorly or you don't highly respect are the same people behind your back who are plotting against your demise,
Mm.
even in your bed, even your wife or husband. So having an ugly heart, having a really off-putting personality,
Mhm.
those are the people ultimately. You can widen that net, like going back to the triangle, or they're gonna get all of them. But when it comes down to here, you're not gonna keep them. And also, for a lot of women and for a lot of men, ultimately, once you really get connected, for women, if you're really beautiful but your heart or your personality is terrible, a man will get tired of that. And for men who often have all those sixes, oftentimes they're typically not great in bed because
Mm.
they haven't had to work on it.
Mm.
So
Interesting.
a lot of times people think, if I have this perfect package, I'm good. Because you're right, you're going to get a lot of attention, you're going to get them in. But keeping someone goes back to working on who you are intrinsically, your heart, and your personality. So, and we all have to work on that, myself included.
Yeah, that's interesting to me. You know, especially because the saying like these hoes be out here winning.
For
So
a minute,
yeah.
yeah. For, I mean, if you even use the Wendy Williams story, I'm sure that young woman who was married, involved with her ex-husband or what
Mhm.
have you, she might be like, I don't care. I'm using Wendy's money or what have you. I don't care. And again, if that's your choice to be someone's side piece mistress,
15 years plus.
that's that's a whole subculture of dating. There's
Mm-hmm.
a whole dating site for people who want to cheat. Like there's a whole site for that.
Crazy.
There's all those things. And again, if that's who you are and that's what you want to be, then you're going to draw that certain kind of person. But I believe in love karma.
Mm.
So those same people who may seem like I'm winning because I'm getting the money, or I got them in my bed, or I got her in my bed and I got her money, whichever gender, you're only women winning on the surface.
Mm-hmm.
And if that's all you care about, then you're winning. But most people, organically human beings, we desire more than a surface connection. So again, I don't throw any shade if that's your thing. If you want to be a side piece, mistress, man or woman, winning is relative. So if that's all you want, then that's all you're going to get.
Well, speaking of winning, what would you say would be the percentage of clients that actually go on and get married to each other? Because that
Small.
seems to be the goal, is to get married.
Yeah, small. I always tell my clients up front before they pay a dollar, there's only a small percentage of people going to a matchmaker that you're going to marry to match. I want people to understand it's work. That's why I said, like, I don't want to be caught up in a reality TV show, even though I love them. Like, I'm a huge fan of a lot of them, but I don't want to be confused that that's what I'm doing, because I don't have a production team. I don't have all that. There's a lot of work that goes into bringing two people together that we believe should meet and ultimately connect for romance. but the sustainability of that process is just as challenging as meeting someone organically. So I never want people to like remove the element of the work just because there's a matchmaker.
Mhm.
So we're definitely a part of your team. We're definitely circumventing some of the frustration, but the reality of it is that dating is hard, relationships are hard, and again, it's only a small percentage of people. Like we've been operating now for about almost 15 years.
Mhm.
We do have about maybe 300 couples or marriages to our credit, but we've served probably or touched 30,000 people. So
Wow.
you do your math,
Yeah.
Mhm.
it's still a very small percentage.
Because you just kind of start them off and then they've got to do the actual work.
Mhm.
Exactly. So, you know, and again, we'll connect them to some of the Esther Boykin, a great clinician. So it's like all these people that I'm like, go here, go there, go there. My role is very much in this box. I am a matchmaker. That's it. And I am doing my best to match you with people that I believe fit your criteria. And ultimately, I believe that you will connect. But the work is the work. So there is still a small percentage of people who go through a matchmaker that will marry their match.
I'm just interested in your response to this, but do you believe in fate or soulmate?
No, no,
Mm.
because I believe there's more than one. Like I mean, I absolutely, I'm in love with my husband, and I'll never marry again. You know, not only because of my age or status, I only wanted one husband, just like I only wanted one child. So again, I believe in love in a pragmatic view. That's just how I am. But I also believe that I've loved other men, just like I know my husband has loved other women.
Right.
Like the father of my child, the mother of his daughter, we loved them at some point. So love becomes in like a category because now we're a big old blended family where, you know, my bonus daughter's mother comes to my house. She celebrated me for my 50th. You know, my son's father helped him move along with his stepfather. They worked together. We still love these people. They're a part of our lives. I've had men that I was deeply in love with, and at that time, I thought they were my soulmate.
Mm.
So what I think is that people think there's only one. I'm saying if you have the opportunity to find that one, keep them.
Mm-hmm.
It's an amazing thing that should not be taken for granted. Don't let it go. Don't think you can get it again. But also for those who have never found it and thought you had it and it got away. Sierra, you said you were engaged
Mm-hmm.
because there's another love.
Right.
Because if you believe that that fiance was the one, then you wouldn't try again. So I think
Right.
it puts people in these boxes that when you put so much emphasis to say like, well, then that's it. I've had my greatest love. I just don't believe that to be true.
I have another question. So, do you, how can I ask this question? So, let's say someone is waiting until marriage. How do you, I want to say, is there a certain way they should be dating differently? Or when do you think they should tell the other person, like, hey, I'm not having sex?
Oh, that's at the door. That goes back to a non-starter. You don't hide your non-starters.
Mm-hmm.
I don't really believe in. I believe there should be a certain level of cat and mouse, but at a certain point, men and women like we're going too far with it. So I get that you want the chase, and I get that you want to keep a little bit to yourself, and I get that you want to grow over time because nothing really trumps. We're using a term. Nothing beats.
We don't want to say that word, do
I
we?
know. Like I'm sorry to put that in your pocket. Like,
We'll bleep it
nothing.
later.
Yeah, nothing beats the opportunity to basically like share who you are and
Mm-hmm.
be your authentic self at all times. And so it can be challenging though, particularly because I had a client who was abstinent. Not that she was a virgin, but she was abstinent. And she wanted anyone who I was considering told up front because I encouraged her to understand waiting until you can get into this heavy petting and all this touching and first base, second base, third base, and then all of a sudden that feels
Mm-hmm.
almost like childish like game.
Mm-hmm.
That
Right.
feels like you're trying to bait me in and then you're saying no, I'm not going any further. Like men consider that like immature, and it is kind of silly.
Mm-hmm.
Ultimately, as a grown woman, if you have boundaries on how far you're going to go in physical intimacy, that should be just told up front.
upfront, like meeting one first conversation, or how upfront is that?
It's really something that a lot of men would like to know.
In the
And so
very
some people, and so I have this kind of debate on my team because it's almost like even like with STDs, people like, well, should I tell them up front or should I wait? And so some of my team feel like, no, because if you're not intimate
Nah,
yet,
tell that
yeah,
that
like I don't need to tell you because we may not even get there. My take is that again, it could be perceived as game. That's all. And I would say particularly prior, like a lot of my men, I have probably more interviews with men than I do women because my women are mostly my clients. So that we're interviewing countless men. So because I'm interviewing so many men and we just have this really admiration for Black men, I'm always curious as in their thoughts. A lot of men consider it game playing if you're withholding information about your openness around sexual intimacy. And so some people would say not on first interaction. I would say just, hey, let me just put all my cards on the table.
Mm.
I'm not open to that. And I know if that's what you want, and maybe it wouldn't even happen. I just feel like you just need to know, only because I'm gonna probably have some guards up to how far I'm gonna go with our physical interaction that would even lead to physical intimacy. So I don't want you to think I'm not attracted to you. I don't want you to think that I'm playing game. I don't want you to think I'm giving it to somebody else.
Right.
I think men would like to know more upfront to be able to make a decision. The same way I feel like women would like to know if you're not interested in a monogamous relationship. Most men feel like women are so fragile, and that is a joke. Most men who get their heart broke, they never recover.
Right.
They never recover. Women tend to bounce back. Just because we key in a car and play on your phone a little bit, that don't mean we broken. That just mean we petty.
We just mad right now.
We're just
We'll be all right.
mad right now. That's it. And most of us ain't gonna do nothing too much. So it's kind
Right.
of like, go ahead and tell us you got another girlfriend, or that you're not open to monogamy, or you're not looking to be exclusive. You want to just have some fun. Tell us. Most women would like to be told up front before I get my heart caught up, get my panties caught up, and then found out that we're not exclusive. So there is this big deal about people not exchanging up front. And again, I have people on my team who do not agree with me. They believe it should wait until you get to that point. I believe it should be at the door.
Because then that gives them all the facts to determine
Mhm.
whether or not they want to keep going.
An
So that makes
informed dater is an effective dater. That's my belief.
Oh, that's interesting.
I
So we
like
can
that.
give people a starter pack up front. Like, okay, here's all the things, a little bit of information about me, important highlights.
Mhm.
Highlights. I like
Make
I,
it
I
easier.
like that because again, fertility. I had clients who almost all of my clients are frozen their eggs because most of my clients are over 35. And
Mhm.
most of them are like, I am not playing around. So most of my clients, and very common, most people don't realize, but it's very common, particularly
Right.
even in Black culture, very common. And a lot of them are like, should I say something about wanting to have a baby? And I'm like, again, I think people should know, not because you're trying to make them the daddy,
Oh,
but if you're being authentic in who I am. So I like Ebony's, I like great. Just some highlights. We ain't got to go in depth. We ain't
Mhm.
got to get into my psyche. I'm just telling you, like, I'm not having sex. Oh, I want to have a baby. Well, I don't see why it can't be told on the first date. That's just my opinion. Again, I'll keep saying this. This is a strong argument between some of my team. They believe it shouldn't happen until you get to that point.
Mhm.
I've said certain things to certain people because I'm like, oh, I'm a little bit more interested in this person or not interested. And then there's guys I'm like, I'm probably not even going to,
Yeah.
talk to you after today. So I'm not even going to even waste my time telling you.
Oh yeah. Of course, definitely use your gauge. If you don't even see a second date, there definitely isn't any purpose of doing any highlights.
Right.
Mhm.
So I want to take this back to something you said a long time ago. You were talking about how some people will come to you and like they don't need a matchmaker. Just take your
Mhm.
hair down, just show up here, show up there. How do you know the difference between someone who really needs a matchmaker and someone who just needs to go off and do it themselves? They're not, I guess, trying hard enough on their own.